let me just tell you a quick story about our mayor, because I got communicated after his State of the Metro address. I challenged the mayor. He was on with us that day, and I challenged the mayor because he said that they had lost all of this money in terms of federal grants for the city. And that was one of the primary reasons. Remember, because I said, I can't believe you're blaming Donald Trump. I'm not blaming Donald Trump. Then what are you doing if you're not blaming Donald Trump? What he did during the State of the Metro address, Freddie O'Connell blamed Donald Trump, essentially, by saying that if the federal government is going to cause instability in the funding of the city of Nashville and the Metro Davidson County area, then they have to make up those funding mechanisms somewhere. And the way that they've decided to do it is to pass a tax increase, a property tax increase of the equivalent of a 27% property tax increase. That's on top of the 34% property tax increase that occurred just 4 years ago. And I said, wait a minute, you're talking about all of this money, all of this grant money that has been withheld, and I have a hard time believing that you're already feeling a pinch with some of these grant dollars. Can you explain this to me? Well, to their credit, and I'll give it where it's due, at least he comes on with us. I don't know if he's coming on with us anymore after all of this ICE stuff. I don't know if he's coming on with us anymore because I'm going after the mayor on this property tax. I think there's a way that we can stop this property tax, but it is a very skinny lane, and it involves hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people showing up at the city council meetings. And I don't think that's going to happen, but whatever. But I received some communication from someone in the mayor's office, and I'm reading from that communication right now. It says, you asked about congressionally authorized grants that we believe were canceled unlawfully. And then he goes on to describe some of those grants. Now, this is the justification the mayor's office is giving to raise your property taxes. Here are the grants per the mayor's office that they say have been canceled unlawfully by the Trump administration. Electric vehicle charging stations. A grant was under the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program established by the IIJJA. The East Nashville Spokes was Active Transportation and Infrastructure Program, also established by the IIJA. So there were two funding sources in the first joint lawsuit, according to the mayor's office. There are two lawsuits, okay? So the first one was the Spokes, or East Nashville Spokes, which I don't know what that is, and the electric vehicle charging stations.
Spokes, like bicycle spokes,
like
maybe?
SPOKES. I assume that's bike lanes. Yeah. I assume that's bike lanes. Number two, in the second lawsuit, the Community Health Worker Grant was funded by the CARES Act in 2020. There was a vaccination grant that was awarded under the Immunization and Vaccines for Children program. The VFC program existed for 30 years. And the ELC program, which was established by the CDC, existed since 1995. All right, so two lawsuits, one a health-related grant and the other a transportation-related grant. So I did a little additional sleuthing, and I talked to some of my sources, and we got to the bottom of the monies that we're talking about regarding those grants. And I have some of that for you, and I want to share it with you. Now, understand, the amount of money that we are talking about amounts to ultimately an infinitesimal amount when you talk about the totality of the budget in Davidson County. But I had some of my sources research a few of these accusations on the part of these lawsuits. And this is what we found out. I'm going to read from it. For the first lawsuit involving transportation grants, the court has determined that there is jurisdiction, and the court found that the proper source of the plaintiff right was in federal law, and they're working through whether or not these are properly filed lawsuits or not. So in the first lawsuit involving transportation grants, the government has acknowledged that grants have been frozen on a mass or not individualized basis. They were frozen because they are allegedly not consistent with agency policy. The federal government was ordered to produce documentation regarding the freeze of that money. That is transportation or infrastructure money. For the second lawsuit, according to the legal department in the city of Nashville, in the second lawsuit involving health grants, the complaint has been filed. There's a hearing on a preliminary injunction set for May 21st. Understand, none of this has affected any activity going on currently in the city of Nashville. These are pending lawsuits where the city of Nashville is expending additional dollars in an attempt to keep the federal money that's being cut. Secondarily, the understanding coming from the health department is that there are 3 grants, a community health worker grant for $400,000, the ELC grant at $7 million, and the immunization money at $3.3 million that was lost. So that amounts to about a little over $10 million that was canceled. The amount of funding actually lost is not likely to be the full amount of $11 million, as the health department, according to the city, was not on track to spend all of those funds by the end of 2026 when they would have expired anyway. The expiration is currently lost by March 25th of 2026. That, according to legal, in the mayor's office. Now, I understand I just threw a lot of numbers at you. The reason I threw those numbers at you is simple. The mayor is attempting to shield what was a planned property tax increase by suggesting to you that the city is losing all of this money, that much of which would have gone away anyway, and none of which the city should depend on to operate its basic functions to begin with. The city of Nashville should not depend on borrowed money from the federal government in the form of grants to run its city streets, to run its police department, to run health and safety, to run transportation. A city that is depending on free money from the federal government to run basic day-to-day operations is not a city that is on good financial footing. And I would suggest that perhaps, just perhaps, you should not be making grandiose plans to expand the footprint of your bus program, as an example, when you can't fund the current operations without borrowing money against the good faith and credit of the federal government. A promise of one-time money or a promise of grant money for this period in time is not a promise for eternal money from the federal government. And it's high time that not just Nashville, but cities all across America began to learn that. Cities have to operate on their own. It is a fact that many cities, larger cities, even in red states like Tennessee, and frankly, even the state of Tennessee, and I don't know that the state is doing it so much. I don't want to cast a... I almost said it. I stopped myself. I don't want to cast... you know what? At state lawmakers. You know, I will give credit to the guy that told me that I said that too much. I have noticed how much I say it since he said that. And I think I say a lot of things a lot. But if your effective goal was to stop me from saying it, you have achieved said goal, because I think about it every time I do. And I wish I could remember your name. Anyway, the state of Tennessee would suggest that they are not relying on borrowed money, but they are relying on some federal dollars. And it is high time that the states stop depending on that federal money, because that federal money is not endless. And that is one thing that DOJ has taught us, despite the fact that our House of Representatives and our Senate in the Congress in the United States of America doesn't seem to care that much about DOJ or anything else the Donald Trump administration is doing, because I got a bone to pick with the Republicans in the Congress as well. So all of that to say, the amount of monies that we are talking about is roughly about $10 million on the health side. I don't know how much it is on the transportation side. I could not get those dollars and cents on the transportation side, but they are frozen for now. But these are dollars that would have gone away eventually anyway, and the city should not depend on them in the future. Period. End of the discussion. And if you have to raise taxes as a result, admit that it was your issue for relying on federal money that you did not or should not have been able to depend on to run day-to-day operations within the city.